Welcome to the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten.
This is your moment to move forward and make progress. It's time to see where an education can take you. For over 130 years, Strayer University has been at the forefront of change, offering programs that help students like you get ahead and stay ahead, so you can keep striving. Visit Strayer.edu to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by CHEV.
And former therapist with a background in counseling psychology. This podcast is for strong, high-achieving women who want more in their lives and relationships, who are ready to rise to the next level of growth, healing, and evolution. Nothing changes until you change. And when you change, everything else changes around you as a result. If you're done with feeling powerless within the chaotic and toxic dynamics in your relationship and don't even know where to begin with making changes, I've got you covered. I know you've tried everything, including counseling, watching hours of videos, and reading stacks of books on narcissism, and find that all it does is leave you feeling even more stuck and in the same place. None of these things work when you're living with a narcissistic spouse because the root causes of the symptoms are not being addressed. As with physical health, there is an emotional, physical, spiritual, and psychological component to healing and overcoming the problematic symptoms and pain you're facing every day in your life and relationship. If you're ready for a direct, no fluff, no nonsense approach to take you into your personal power and take back your life, you are in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode. Welcome to this edition of the Awakening Women podcast. We're chatting about being a conscious, growth-oriented woman. I haven't really brought this up a lot on the podcast, and I'm coming up with new topics in the direction of healing and empowering and healthy relationships. I want to talk more about what becomes possible when we get out of our own way and we get out of these cycles of tolerating and accepting less than we deserve in a relationship. So I'm not here to talk about toxic relationships, but we will be talking about what happens when you are a growth-oriented woman. You value growth, so you probably take courses, you invest in coaching, you go to therapy, you listen to podcasts, you read books, you journal, you want to look for the lesson in life, the lesson for things. You are always willing to look at your own part in conflicts or issues. So when something comes up in your life, you don't point the finger to blame outside forces or other people. You look at, okay, how did I create this? What part in this, even if it's a small part, can I own? What part in this, even if it's not the whole part in it, can I take ownership of? And how is this not my fault, but my responsibility? Like, what did I fail to see here? What choices did I make that led to this? Where did I not know enough at the time that I know now? So it's not about beating ourselves up and blaming ourselves. It's about taking ownership, and we cannot change anything that we don't take responsibility for. So we first have to be willing to take radical responsibility. And that includes the types of men that we tolerate and we entertain, how long we stay in relationships, how much we're trying to change the other person to make ourselves feel better, instead of looking at what we need, what we really need to thrive in a relationship and in our lives, and going toward that. Instead, we stay in these stagnant situations for decades trying to get a partner to change. And it is just a waste of time. I've never heard of a good outcome of a woman trying for decades to change a man. It doesn't work. So it's much better to change yourself, work on yourself, and you will outgrow the relationship. And the sad thing is that there are some men, and I would say many men, who would rather lose a good woman and lose their family, have their home break up, before they will look in the mirror to look at themselves. They don't see that they have a good woman that is willing to do the work, that is asking them to come along the growth journey, but they decide that they're not the problem. You are the problem. And we can never change when we have that mentality. Just like you can't ever change if you are constantly just saying they are the problem. You have to point the finger and say, where am I the problem here? Like, where is this my problem? Like, what is my own blind spots here that I'm not seeing? So what can I take responsibility for in this relationship, in this dynamic, in this situation? That is growth conscious mindset. It's never about beating ourselves up. It's never about, oh, I need to fix myself more and do more and keep like perfecting myself. No, it's about being awake. And someone that I love to listen to that brings me so much peace is Anthony DeMello. If you've ever heard of him, he has some beautiful, profound spiritual teachings. And when I need to just ground into something spiritual, I will find one of his YouTube videos. He's not alive anymore, but he used to do a lot of talks in the 70s on spirituality and psychology. Anyway, if you're really looking for something on a deep level where you can start taking responsibility, he's all about nothing around you can make you unhappy, that you are your own unhappiness. And so it's really good in that sense. Another one that I listen to and have for many, many, many years is Wayne Dyer. So those are two that it doesn't matter what's going on in my life. If I listen to something of theirs, it brings me back to myself, to my spirituality, my spiritual connection. I'm not religious. I don't go to church. I know some people do, and that's their quote unquote church. So mine is like getting into nature, listening to nature, or listening to something like that while I'm hiking or walking. So anyway, side note, when we're talking about trying to change a man and getting them to come along on the growth journey, it's not going to happen. So if you're in a relationship with someone who has no desire to grow or change, they're not willing to see any of their own issues, but they point the finger that you're the problem, and you are someone, you're a woman that wants to evolve and you value growth, and maybe you're trying to reach goals, you are successful in your career in other areas, but you're going to find that if you have a partner that's not willing to grow with you or even see their own issues, it's going to be a stagnant, boring, awful relationship, right? Because you can't force someone to want to grow with you. So it's much better to focus on yourself, work on yourself, and find a partner that wants to do that with you. It may not look the same as you, but someone who's willing to have those talks, willing to hear your side, come with you on the journey, to be able to meet you in the middle, to understand your needs and their views and your views, and come up with a middle ground, right? They might be someone that helps lift you up, or they support you in a way at times that you need in ways that are not your strength, and vice versa, right? It doesn't have to mean that you meet someone that's obsessed with reading self-help books and listening to Wayne Dyer. It doesn't have to look the same, but hopefully you can talk to them about some of these concepts and they're interested in it and they're willing to have that conversation, right? Or they're willing to learn from you in those aspects, right? And vice versa, you learn from them. So it doesn't mean it's going to look the same, but you certainly would not be tolerating someone who is deflecting all the issues, not taking any responsibility, changing the subjects when you're trying to address issues, not willing to have those hard conversations. They are twisting reality, not taking any ownership, being dishonest, betraying, all of those things. They're inconsistent. They don't put any effort forth. Like, you can't grow with someone like that. Now, the other thing that I see, so I've been doing these assessments and I've really been enjoying doing them because it gives me time to really go over what the women are writing to me and really dive deep into, okay, what is the root of this? Dive into my intuition. And I can do that in a one-on-one call, but this is actually different and I really loved it. And so what I was seeing in a few of them was, I've been in therapy for 10 years. I'm reading all the books. I'm doing spiritual retreats. I'm going to courses. I'm doing this coaching and all these things. And none of it's working. Or I'm doing my whole past trauma childhood stuff. I've been doing that for 10 years. And it's like work, but nothing has changed. I can't seem to get out of this relationship, or I can't seem to be happy. I can't seem to let go of the past. And that's because you're not actually doing the work. It's just a lot of busy work. Or you're doing work, but it's not work that's actually dealing with the root of the issue. So what I see with women, and I've certainly been here, where I was trying to fix things that actually weren't my problem to fix. It was a relational issue. And so ask yourself, is the shit that you're going through or the shit that you've been through actually your shit? Or is it something that you've been put through by a man, by a partner? This is a really important thing to discern. Ask yourself, all the stuff you're trying to work through in therapy and trauma work and books and courses and retreats and all of it, is this really what's like within you that needs healing? Or are you doing the healing work or working to heal what your spouse is doing to hurt? Does that make sense? Like, are you trying to heal the fact that you're with someone that is bringing up all of your childhood pain that maybe you have not resolved, that would be easier to resolve if you weren't in a situation like this? Or maybe you are bonded to your past in a sense where you aren't able to process and let go of the past. We can only process the past for so long, and then it just becomes this energy drain. Nobody wants to be around somebody who's constantly living in the past. And I'm like this because of my mother, and I'm like this because of my father, and I'm like this because of my husband. And like, no, that's not taking responsibility for your own evolution. So those are two things to ask yourself right now if you are in a relationship that is not working. And if you are out of the relationship, you can still really reflect on this is, if you are a woman that identifies with being growth oriented, I definitely am for, probably my whole life. I remember getting my first self-help book out of the library when I was like, was I 12? 12 or 13. I went to the public library and got a self-help book. So it's always kind of been in there, and I have like bins full of journals that I started when I was about that age too. So I have bins of journals and writing that I've done since I was a young teen. So it has always been within me. It's not something new, but it's kind of deepened in. And where I'm at now, I'm more really wanting to deepen into my spiritual growth and healing my body and learning how to speak up about things that don't feel right or I don't like in my life, and owning the things that I want and need and meeting my own needs and putting me first. And that means doing the things that I need to do to be okay with me, to feel good, because if I don't feel good and I'm not doing well and I'm burned out and my immune system with autoimmune is flaring and I'm tired and my brain is in just a fog and I can't function, who does that help? I can't be a good mother. I can't be here recording this podcast because this requires energy to put out. I won't be able to fully serve my clients who need me to be at my best. And so there's many different people that need me at my best. And so that also goes for you. You probably have things that you need to be your best for. And you can't just say, oh, all this that's going on around me, I don't have time. I don't have time for self-care. I don't have time for good sleep. I don't have time to eat well. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to journal or meditate or whatever. Those are all excuses. And if you cling on to those excuses, then you will have the reward of that to the equivalent of the effort you're putting in. So being a growth conscious woman means that we do our own work first. We look at our role in dynamics before we point the finger. And we speak up about what we want in our relationships. And we have a look and see, who is it in my life that I'm trying to heal from? Is it someone that is in my present right now? Is it really just the past unprocessed stuff? Because the other thing that I see a lot of women doing is they're trying to process their childhoods and what went wrong and why they are the way they are and this and their father and their mother and their grandmother and like, you don't need to go back digging in the closet for skeletons. That's not the approach that I like. Now, as a therapist that, my background was in therapy and counseling psychology, I learned all about the different counseling therapeutic models and how to work with people's psychology, right? Clients. And so there's different schools of thought like that, we do need to go digging for those past things and asking all these questions about the past to see where the connections are. I'm more about the past only has as much influence over you as you allow, because all we have is right now. So if you are dealing with something in the present, sure, something from the past might come up as that's where I remember feeling that for the first time, we work with the present moment. That's what I do with my coaching anyways, when I work with women. And in my programs, we're dealing with the present moment. So for me, like recently something came up. Then I had this memory in my childhood where I felt that feeling before. Because one of the questions we ask when we're triggered, this is basic psychology 101, is where have I felt this before? Like when was the first time I remember feeling this feeling? And as you open this up, these things just come naturally when you are just when you're being in the present moment. And I had this like, aha, like I think I was like curling my hair. I wasn't sitting in contemplation or anything. I was getting ready for the day. And I was like, oh, that's why that felt so big to me when it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Because I remember feeling it in my childhood at this point, and it was that feeling. Does that mean that that feeling is representing the same type of situation? No, and that's why we do look to the past and how it is impacting the now, but we don't have to allow it to, right? We can have things that have happened to us in our childhoods and abuses and neglect and realize that, yeah, that's a part of our story, and we don't suppress that. We don't deny that that's there, but we allow it in if there's something going on in the present that is kind of like it's reminding us of a past thing. So that's what we work with in the present. We don't deny that it's happened. We realize, oh, I know why this is coming up. It's because of that. That feels like this. So in this moment, is that happening right now? No. So I'm safe right now in the now. This is not then. And we can use those connections to heal the present. So it's always in my approach anyways, is about we work in the present moment and then we find solutions to move forward. So that's the inner work. It's not just the busy work of reading more books and getting more information, right? More information does not equal transformation. It's about what are you doing day to day? Is it part of your lifestyle to check in and go, where is this coming from? Like, and we don't need to go too far into it, right? Like I see women, they over process. So what I will tell a woman that is over processing, that tells me I've done this and that, and I'm doing this healing work and 6 years of trauma therapy and blah, 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 all this. I'm like, okay, you need to stop processing, and you actually need like an action plan. You need to get out of that. You've done enough. So now it's like, let's move forward with a strategy. Let's do some actions, because you've already done enough processing. It becomes its own crutch. It becomes its own addiction. I'm addicted to my suffering, and I'm just like, it's almost, and I'm going to just come out and say this because I've seen this. It's its own form of narcissism. So self-focused, so processing my life, my trauma, my this, my that. It becomes its own form of like me. So instead, another thing that really helps is like, how can I give back? How can I give to something else? How can I, have something else to focus on that's not my trauma and my wounds? If it means you start a blog, or you start a daily journaling practice, or you buy some plant, learn how to take care of plants. I don't care what it is. If you are doing this decades of intense processing and 6 years of therapy and like 10 years of therapy, focusing on all that, and you're still in the same place in therapy, trying to process that same stuff, and you're no further along, you're doing the wrong thing. You're doing it backwards. And so we move into present focus. Like, the other thing is, if you're too stuck in the living in the past, processing the past, you're not going to have any different of a future. You can't move forward in that. You're stuck living in the past, basically. And that keeps you from being here now and realizing today might be my last day. Right? Today might be my last day. When I was really sick in January, I had thoughts like, this could be my last day, because I was like, what is happening to me? And like, what will happen with my girls and my house and like all the things, my dogs. Like, being that sick wakes you up to the reality, like, we are not promised health every day. We're not promised to be able to get up and go to work if you get up and go to work. If for me, if I had a get up and go job, I probably would have been fired, because there's no way for that month I could have gone to any work, any place. So we're not guaranteed that. I'm blessed that I set my life up in such a way that I was able to take that time. I wasn't able to put out any content, but you can bet I wasn't doing personal growth and reading books for that month. I was not journaling. I was not doing my outdoor walking. I was not doing anything. And that was awful. And I've gotten back to really focusing in on my spirituality again, and my healing, my physical healing and emotional healing, but only as it comes up. I just encourage you, if you resonate with any of this, where you have just gotten stuck in the busy work of being in therapy forever and you're not getting anywhere, it's time to do something different. And so the take home from this, a few take homes. So number one, if you're in a relationship with someone who is not willing to grow and look at their own issues, and you've been in this for more than 2 years, I always say give it the first couple years. Sometimes, people are willing to work and grow with you. Give it time, as long as there's no, abuses going on and things like that. If you've been with someone for longer than that little honeymoon phase and you've been trying to get them to change, you're waiting around. Oh, maybe this time he'll change. 15 years later, I want a divorce. Oh, he's changing. I don't know if I should give it more time. Should I give it more time? No. No. Please don't. Anyways, if you are in that place, realize that you are going to be held back if you are going to continue putting all of your life force energy into trying to change them. And instead realize, I am not going to allow myself to be held back anymore, because I've been allowing it. I've been allowing myself to be controlled and manipulated. I can take back my power and take back my energy without their permission. You don't need their permission to leave. You don't need their permission to put yourself first. But too many women are like, oh, what will he say? Or he's going to, I don't know how you'll react and all this, right? Doesn't matter. This is part of your work, is I have to put me first. And then also looking at, if you're in a relationship that's not working, is it actually shit that you're going through, that you feel like you're going through it together, or that you've been through together? Or is it shit that they have put you through with their behavior and their actions? That if you were not in that relationship, maybe you wouldn't need 6 years of therapy. Maybe you wouldn't need to be doing all the gazillion things that you're doing. Maybe you would then just be processing the now, or the most recent, the breakup, how you got into that situation, the patterns that you tolerate, rewiring all of that, rewriting your story, changing your behaviors, learning what you'd want in a new relationship if you desire that. That would be more obtainable, right? But when you're constantly in this, it becomes its own distraction, because you're processing the past instead of looking at the now and realizing 95% of my problems would be gone if I just left this awful relationship. A lot of that would lift. So still, focus on your growth. Being a growth-oriented woman is a beautiful thing. There's not a lot of us out there, and it's hard to, meet your tribe in that sense of women and even family, because family, when you start to grow and expand, they might try to hold you down and hold you back. And so it's important to have a community of other women that are doing the same thing, that are looking to change the now and create a new vision for their future. When you're stuck in this type of relationship and you are not doing the right kind of work, it's just another distraction. So I hope that helps you, and keep going with it. Just make sure that you are living for the now instead of over processing the past that you can't do anything about. Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of the Awakening Women podcast. If you love this episode, please take a moment to share it and leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're ready to take your next step, head to the link in the show notes to sign up for my latest free class. Also, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Awakening Women Official and join the conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again in the next episode. Take care of yourself in the meantime, and I'll see you online.